of worries him that he can't explain what's happening and it goes on and he can't deny what's happening.
So the locations that we chose this location because of how isolated it is. Like in a lot of horror films, there are settings in wooded areas because there's no one around and the characters do feel very isolated. As you can see from the first picture, that is where we would put Lauren when Josh is walking past her but doesn't notice her at first sight. We thought this would be effective because he is isolated and it's a kind of camera shot where the audience can see what's happening but the characters can't. This is going to be the alleyway that Abby walks down where Lauren preys on her. We thought this was good because again it's isolated and it feels very claustrophobic. It's also good because we're using a tracking shot and there's nowhere that we can't look because of reflections. This is the house setting that we have, and this is going to be Chloe's house, who's the leader of the group, and where the group meet up when they need to discuss things. We've made it just as a normal house because that way the audience can relate to it and they can feel like it would happen in their own home. The bathroom is where we will kill Chloe, and we will have to use shots through mirrors to be able to see this.
We plan on using a varied range of shots and editing techniques to enhance the viewer's viewing pleasure towards the film. We use a number of long shots in our opening to give our audience a sense of place and to create a sense of isolation. The close-ups in our film focus on objects rather than people. This is fairly typical in a horror because it gives people the object significance. Although not properly dark, it will not be overly light either, as this is a typical horror. In the editing, we'll use jump cuts to create a sense of suspense. Flashbacks, we will contrast the colours in the shot more to make it sure it is clear that they're a flashback. We will also use a sound to show that the flashback is being started and ended. Piano music will be used at the beginning to create a sense of sadness. A short sound will then be used when Lauren appears. This will also develop that we reach the murder of Chloe. Portraying the genre. We use the establishing shot in the graveyard, the dead girl being followed, mainly unsuspecting characters, typical characters, e.g. unaware and confident characters, nervous and vulnerable characters, dark secret that pulls characters apart and leads to bad things happening, the point of view shot, challenges and convictions as the killer is also one of the victims, so the audience sympathises with them more, and these are all key elements which tie into classic horrors.
The target audience and advertisement. The age range that we have our film going to be things that's going to like is the age range 15 to 25. This is obviously because our film is a horror film and we think it will appeal to more teenagers and young adults more than younger children and older people. We think that it'll be more towards women. We think that it'll be this because it's about a bunch of teenagers and they can relate to their problems. We think that certification will be 15 according to the BBFC age rating because it's going to include violence and death, but it's not enough graphological images enough to be an 18, I mean 15, yeah, 19. Social groups we think will be more friendship groups, particularly the age range of 15 to 25, because they're not likely to watch on their own, more likely to watch in groups of friends like at sleepovers. For the advertisement, we think we're going to use loads of different ways to advertise our film, including magazines. Because it's aimed at women, then they're more likely to use read magazines, and you can put posters in like there. Social networks. Loads of people, like young teenagers, have Facebook or Twitter, and we can use that to show our films that can come out. Other things could be posters, trailers on TVs and in the cinema. Could also help us advertise our films.
We looked into quite a few different British institutions, but in the end we decided to go with Hammer Films, as they've done quite a few horror films before, and they were the most similar to the kind of film we wanted to do in terms of the plot and the audience.
Yeah, very good. Right. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Well, no? Right, well, I've got a few anyway, so. Okay, please can we go back to the slide with your plot on it, so I can just have a look at it for a second. Because I think your plot's really good. However, I think in the opening, we need to establish the motive for Lauren's actions, don't we? And I think if just the bit in red is what is going to be shown, then I don't think that does establish the motive for Lauren's actions. So, I mean, there are a number of ways you could do that. Sort of, I know that you said it inadvertently caused her death, and you said that you want to start with an establishing shot in a graveyard. I don't know how feasible it would be to make it look as though it's Lauren's grave you're looking at. You obviously wouldn't be able to do that because none of you are presumably stonemasons, so none of you are going to carve a grave. But you could do that with sort of placing a photograph of her near the grave or something and putting some flowers down on it or something, just to show that motive. That was something I was a little bit concerned about. What is Josh's role in the film? Will he be in the trailer? In the opening rather.
Yeah, he's in the opening. He's not the voice of reason because that's Chloe's character, but he's there and he does try to reason with, say, Abby, who's the more hysterical character. And he's also there because he's the one who finds it's not definitive proof that it's Lauren, but it's the most convincing proof they've had so far.
Okay, and he is her ex-boyfriend, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe him being at the grave at the start would be a really good idea, yeah. Do you think, you've said that your target audience is mostly females, do you think horror isn't necessarily a genre that's particularly popular with females?
Well, we did think about that. It obviously would be aimed at men as well, but we thought more women because they can relate to the teenage characters more.
Okay, but what about teenage men? Would they not also be able to relate to the characters?
Well, they could, but it's like the main character is a girl.
True,
It's
it's
close.
mostly female
It's
driven.
just like we think it would be more aimed at women.
Yeah, I wonder whether it could be more aimed at couples perhaps, and positioned in that way to sort of improve your amount of viewers. And finally, I think you chose a really good institution with Hammer. What have you researched what Hammer have been doing recently? Because I know they were a massive horror company a long time in the past, but I didn't realise what they were up to at the moment.
They've not produced as many at the moment. I think they were taken, well, Universal now play a part in like their distribution.
Oh, okay, well that's very good.
Yeah, which was one of the reasons why we chose them, because obviously the film can reach a wider audience. They still do horror films, they don't produce as many as they used to.
Okay, and do they do this kind of film? Because they were traditionally known for kind of vampires and werewolves and Frankenstein kind of movies.
They have moved, I think they've moved a bit towards more modern, but it's still fairly...
Okay, fairly sort of supernatural driven.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good choice there, because this could be kind of a film that you could use to sort of revitalise a flagging institution. Okay? Right, nobody else got anything they want to say? Well done.